Swag.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Nikki Druce.
And this is Killers, Cults and Queens.
A podcast where we journey to the spookiest, scariest, and downright weirdest corners of the world.
Today, we're exploring the disaster which changed the world. The Chernobyl nuclear disaster.
Okay. I'm hot, I'm cold, I'm hot, I'm cold. That's a pretty quick turnaround.
Couldn't be working out quick.
You're getting it in 25 years, maybe, if I can be bothered to turn up.
They were right, you were wrong. Shut up, comrade.
Said in an Essex accent, that's my favourite.
Are you ready?
I don't know if I really am for this one, but I guess we're going anyway.
We're going. Well, not physically.
Okay, good.
Imagine you're an emergency dispatch operator. You've answered a call that a fire has broken out, and you start running through your script to find out what exactly is going on. As the caller answers your questions, they sound agitated and worried, and when you start pressing the buttons to call the fire station, you ask for the address. What the caller says then makes your blood run cold. The fire is at the Chernobyl nuclear reactor. Welcome to Killers, Cults and Queens. But first, how things going, huh, Nikki Druce? You all good?
I'm all good, thank you very much. I've been having a good week this week. The sun is shining, everything is feeling fine and fun and fruity.
That's how we like to play things, fun and fruity.
Fun and fruity. Are you a fan of fruit machines?
Look, I'll level with you. Every time I have been near a casino, near a fruity machine, I haven't got an absolute clue on what I'm doing. I'm just pressing buttons.
No, I haven't got a clue. I feel like it's something that I would like to be good at.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you become good at it, or if it's something that is just like, it's just all luck.
I mean, gambling is just lady luck, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, there is no science to it. Some people do figure out, like, the rules of blackjack and all this, but I think when it comes down to a fruity, it's just luck and actual computers deciding your factor. It's like, I'm not saying this is fact. I'm not saying this is fact, but you know the grabbers?
Yeah.
They say for every 19 goes, it grabs once.
Yeah. No, they're definitely, you can adjust the amount of times that it pays out on that. So that's not like, you're not libeling anybody there. You're okay with that when you can say that's a known fact.
As you could tell, everybody, Nikki has conditioned me well on this podcast to cover every basis so we do not get sued.
Allegedly.
But I'm glad that all is good, all is well. You are looking resplendent in your caftan today.
Oh, resplendent. Thank you very much. Yes, I do love a caftan. You can't really go wrong with a caftan. It's kind of feels like you're wearing something super chic, but actually feel quite nudie underneath.
The Rachel Zoe effect.
There's nothing on. The Rachel Zoe effect? Fill me in.
Oh, no, it's just Rachel Zoe loves a caftan.
Okay, well, there we go.
As you can tell, Nikki is a big fan of Bravo. Actually, to be fair, I feel like I have been an influence on you.
You have, for sure.
Maybe we'll get you onto early Beverly Hills. We'll work you up to the Rachel Zoe project.
Yeah, I kind of feel like there's sort of little bits that I catch on to every now and then, and I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I like this. I've recently got into Summer House.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh!
Yeah. No, I didn't know whether I'd like it or not, but it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, these people don't have real problems. It's fine. But they're having dramas in a summer house, which is way too expensive that I could never afford. And oh well, boo-hoo. I don't feel sad for you at all.
No. We're a big fan of the Hey You world.
We are indeed. Please sponsor us. That would be very nice. Thanks.
But are you enjoying the t-shirt?
I am really liking this t-shirt. It looks super soft and comfortable, and it looks super chic. I bet I can guess where it's from.
Well, you can guess correctly because it is courtesy of our sponsors of this season of Killers, Cults and Queens, Snag Tights. Now, you thought they were just doing tights up in this game. No, sorry. They have got everything covered, from t-shirts to dresses, even to bath towels for every person of every size. And this t-shirt comes courtesy of their tarot collection with, I believe there are 6 t-shirts in this collection with different tarot cards. Plus, they also have some fabulous tarot card tights, which are
Ooh.
so chic. I would be wearing them, but I wanted to pair my leather trousers with my little t-shirt for today. But if you want to check out their fabulous tarot card collection, plus many more fabulous items, head to snagtights.com. So today you asked, we listened, and we are covering Chernobyl, or Cheryl Noble, as we found out in one of our spooky sleepovers, because I'm taking the lead on this one. But how did we get here, Nikki?
Well, we got here because of me. I'm the problem. It's me.
No, I don't think you're the problem. You're the solution.
Ah, thank you very much. I will take that. But I ended up going down a rabbit hole of mutant animals at Chernobyl and how the conditions there after the nuclear disaster have meant that everybody has left the place and it's been deserted and abandoned for many, many, many years. Like, it's starting to come back now. But that's allowed nature to heal itself in its own way, but it's also meant that because of the radiation that's there, some new interesting things have come out of it. So if you want to hear more about that, we have covered it in a spooky sleepover before, so go back and have a look. I can't remember what the name of the spooky sleepover was.
We'll just put it in the description for you all.
Description for you all.
Okay, well, we've got my new surname all picked out, Noble. So we say goodbye to Hull finally, and we're ready to don our rubber suits, pop on our masks, and switch our radiation meters on, because we're heading to Ukraine, and more importantly, right to the heart of Reactor 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. So let's set the scene. It's a cold and rainy day on the 28th of April 1986 in Sweden, just north of Stockholm at the Forsmark nuclear power plant. As one of the workers is just getting ready to start his day, he goes through the regular testing machines. He places his hands and feet on the machine and it immediately begins beeping. This is surely the machine just having a funny 5 minutes, so he steps off, a technician resets it, and they go again. The beeps ring out again. The radiation detector is saying that the worker is contaminated. Inside a nuclear power plant, this is a cause for concern, so they take his clothing and they test it without him, and it gives him the green light. The clothes is tested separately with another machine, and it screams out a warning and the lights turn red. His clothes are contaminated with high levels of radiation. This triggers a full-scale scramble at the nuclear power plant. The man is put into solitary confinement, as are his clothes as well, and engineers and scientists come running from all directions. If there's a leak, everything has to be shut down immediately. The reactors are all checked. More tests are carried out, and all the readings come back fine. But if the radiation wasn't coming from their nuclear power plant, where was it coming from? After testing the radiation and following the wind direction, they could tell this wasn't nuclear waste from their own plant. This had come from somewhere else. But with readings this high, the engineers knew that whatever had happened had to be catastrophic. And if they didn't work out where it had come from, it could be fatal for not only them, but for hundreds of thousands of people across the world. But where was this lethal radiation coming from? And did scientists stand a chance in tracking it down in time before it destroyed the whole continent? Let's find out.
So this is a bit of a tricky one, isn't it? Because we're starting off with somebody discovering this radiation elsewhere and not knowing where it's come from.
We're talking miles and miles and miles away, hundreds, maybe even thousands of miles away. It's not like London to Manchester.
Yeah.
We're talking a far distance. So this radiation has travelled.
And it's a large amount as well for it to set off the contamination devices as well. Because I'm guessing if you're working in a nuclear power plant, you are going to have traces of contamination on you at all times, because that is just how it is, isn't it? If you're around that kind of thing.
I mean, it's like working in a bakery. You're going to leave with flour on your bloody apron, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely going to happen, isn't it? So this is concerning, because if this is flagged and it's all those thousands of miles away, something bad has happened.
And bad is an understatement of what we're about to learn. So, to begin today's story, let's pick back up in Sweden, where a worker has just presented high levels of radiation on their clothing. They can't detect the leak at the nuclear power plant in Sweden, so they make a few phone calls. Other nuclear power plants all deny that there have been any leaks, but this level of radiation just simply falling on Sweden suggests somebody's telling porcupines. After tracing the wind direction and the weather patterns, the engineers at the Forsmark work out that the radiation is travelling from the direction of the Soviet Union. Forsmark calls the nuclear power plant in Ukraine known as Chernobyl, and they tell them their findings. They sheepishly say that there's been an accident, but reassure them that it's small and under control. Pinocchio. But in a few hours' time, their actions would suggest that the truth was quite different from what they'd said on the phone, and that this was not just an accident, this was a disaster.
No.
Over in the Soviet Union, officials were being swan-like in their behaviour. And I don't mean just throwing a little hissy fit. They were very calm on the surface, but paddling triple time to stay afloat. And that's because the engineers at Forsmark were right. Something devastating had happened inside Chernobyl, but as yet, no one was willing to spill the beans on quite how bad things were. In the next few hours, the authorities had no choice but to go public with the news, but they assured everyone that this was nothing to worry about. Sure, Jan. Soon, the authorities took over the local TV signal and broadcast a message which advised those living in Pripyat, the town next to the reactor, that they would need to leave. The message said to gather families, pack enough belongings for the next 3 days, take enough food and water, and leave pets behind.
Oh, no.
Over the course of a day, thousands of buses were gathered from everywhere in the Soviet Union, and those living in Pripyat were moved to the nearby Kiev into temporary accommodation. I couldn't do this, could you?
Well, I think that's probably the price you pay for living near a nuclear reactor, isn't it?
Don't remember this episode of The Simpsons.
No, it definitely wasn't on there.
The majority of Pripyat's 49,000 residents were evacuated within the course of a singular afternoon. But why the haste if this was such a small accident? Well, after a 3-day evacuation turned into a week, it seemed something much worse was at play. As people gathered on the buses and in their temporary accommodation, the rumour mill was well and truly fired up. People started saying they'd experienced what felt like an earthquake the night before. Others saying they heard a loud thud just before 1:30 in the morning. Your bedtime?
It is my bedtime. I would have heard it. I would have been wide awake.
As more people began chatting, more information was revealed. Some say they saw a blue flash coming from the direction of Chernobyl, and others saw smoke. Some say they saw fire engines and flames, and soon people started to realise that something may be very, very wrong. And it seemed the chance of them being allowed to go home was getting further and further away.
I'm just thinking about all the little doggies and the cats
And the rabbit,
and the rabbits and the hamsters and the goldfish that are all on their own.
and the parakeet,
And the lizards.
and the Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart. At the thought I couldn't leave Bosington at home.
No, but if somebody's told you that's the case, just think it's pretty sad.
Well, would you like some good news?
Yes, please.
People were very like-minded, like yourself and I, and did end up smuggling some of their animals out.
Good. That's what I like to hear, because I would definitely have a rabbit, a goldfish, 2 lizards, a hamster, and a cat stuffed up this caftan for sure.
Just 2 little gerbils buried in the bra. Now, let's leave our Pripyat evacuees on pause for the moment because we need to learn about the nuclear fusion. So get your lab coat on because Scientist Shez is taking you back to the classroom.
Okay, I'm ready.
So why build a nuclear power plant in the first place? Because surely they're just asking for trouble, right?
Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you?
Well, no, actually, because nuclear power is actually very safe. I know you're probably not believing me right now, Nikki Drews, with that, but it is, and I will tell you for why. Now, normal fuels like coal, gas, and oil are not great for the environment. They can be expensive to obtain, as we're finding out in quite current times of
Yes.
this podcast airing.
Mm-hmm.
But uranium, which nuclear power is made from, produces no greenhouse gases and is cleaner and safer all round, as long as you don't do anything wrong with it, which we'll find out about. So Sweden built the first nuclear power plant in 1969, which is still alive and kicking to this day. And of course, because the Soviet Union had the rivalry with Sweden, a rivalry which was pretty one-sided on their part because Sweden didn't want to play reindeer games with good old Soviet Union and ignored them a lot. So they wanted to copy them, of course. That's what they do.
Yeah, it seems about right, doesn't it?
So they pushed their plans through in the 1970s and finished reactors 1 and 2 by the time of 1977 rolling around, and 3 and 4 came along in 1983.
That's a pretty quick turnaround.
I couldn't be working that quick.
No. You're getting it in 25 years, maybe, if I can be bothered to turn up.
But why such a big nuclear power plant in a relatively rural place? Well, the Soviet Union was planning to become a superpower in the world, and the nuclear power plant would help many industries come to life. By supplying a shit ton of electricity, other big industries could function without having to buy in power, and therefore more money would stay in the country. Loads more jobs would be created, and the Soviet Union would become strong comrade.
Strong comrade.
You did a better accent than I did.
I've been practicing.
The Soviet Union was trying to show off how much power it had, and so they built Chernobyl rapidly. The RBMK reactors were a Soviet design and therefore not used anywhere else in the world. Good or bad? We'll find out.
Yeah.
They used water for cooling, which would get to boiling temperature, and graphite rods to slow down the reactor. This made the top of the reactor look alive when it was working, as the little blocks would rise up and down from the floor all by itself.
So it was like... Beep, boop, boop, boop. Okay.
I'm hot, I'm cold, I'm hot, I'm cold.
Interesting. I never really thought about it, that it would be moving. I just thought it was kind of doing its thing underground.
Bubbling.
Yeah, but I guess that makes sense, doesn't it? If the rods are moving around, they've got to come up and down. Yeah,
quite aesthetically pleasing to look at.
Yeah, I bet it's probably quite nice to watch. Calming, but also incredibly dangerous.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
The reactor would create a lot of steam, which was siphoned off into tanks, and then the water was recycled and it would go back through the machine again once it had been cooled down enough. This meant that the RBMK reactors were using a whopping 1 million tons of water a day per reactor to keep them going. 4 reactors. That's a lot of water.
Yeah, I wonder how much in terms of like how many swimming pools that would be.
Well,
lots.
Yeah.
Lots and lots and lots. Okay.
But the RBMK reactors were not free of human intervention. They needed regular testing and checks to make sure everything was operating safely. And many of these tests included shutting down reactors when they were working to stop them being overloaded. Just like me. But they were relatively cheap to make, can operate, and this meant that the Chernobyl nuclear power plant could be built quickly on a smaller budget. But these initial choices to save money would later cost more than anybody would ever expect. Are you surprised?
Yeah, I just kind of feel like quickly and cheap budgets and nuclear power are not things that should be going hand in hand. I want to hear long build times, big budgets, very secure. Those are the things I want to hear.
Strong and stable.
Strong and stable. Maybe not strong and stable, but strong and stable.
Why the rush? What was the big hoo-ha about? Well, this was all happening during the height of the what?
The Cold War.
Yes, indeed, my Nikki. This was the time following World War II when the USA was beefing with the Soviet Union, and this was becoming a big old dick measuring contest to show off who had the most nuclear weapons.
It's not a game that you really want to play, is it? Of going, I've got the most nuclear weapons. Look how amazing I am.
Well, I feel like it's happening now.
Yeah.
So to be able to harness nuclear power was just a big way of showing off at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
America was building loads of power plants themselves, just like in The Simpsons, like I said earlier. And so the Soviets had to keep up and go even faster. This ultimately led to cutting corners, ignoring safety issues, and making errors which would later be catastrophic. The people in charge of Chernobyl were a mix of highly trained engineers, young operators, many of which were in their early 20s, calling these big shots, and those involved with the Soviet Party. This provided the perfect storm of an echo chamber when it came to looking at the newly opened power plant objectively to see if there was anything that needed attention.
Yeah, I can kind of see how that could happen, because if you've got people from above telling you it's perfectly fine and there's no problems and we built it on a budget and really fast, but it's all good, that just don't worry about those cracks over there. It'll be perfectly fine. Everything will be sorted and we'll definitely survive this and there won't be a nuclear disaster. You'd just go, yeah, okay, that's fine. Anyway, back to my job. I'm doing my job really well. Let's not worry about those cracks over there, eh? Because that guy said not to worry about those cracks over there.
Pay no attention to the nuclear behind the curtain.
Look over there!
Good reference. Soviet Party officials wanted the reactors to be producing as much electricity as possible, and daily targets were high. In the control room, the operators were expected to follow orders, even when the reactor was behaving dangerously, and the culture they worked under discouraged hesitation and criticism. They were right. You were wrong. Shut up, comrade.
Said in an Essex accent. That's my favourite.
Hey. Take the girl out of Essex, but she will still be from Essex.
Yeah, I can just imagine Gemma Collins saying that.
Shut up, comrade. Is that trifle?
This is how it would happen in Essex, isn't it?
Thank God there's no nuclear power plants of our knowledge.
Yeah, definitely don't put Gemma in charge, that's for sure.
When someone pointed out that graphite was not a great item to use inside reactors due to it being highly flammable, the suggestion was shot down. In fact, an incident had happened at a nuclear power plant in the northwest of England in Cumberland in 1957, where they were building atomic bombs. A fire had broken out as a result of using graphite in a reactor, and this caused something called the wind scale fire. Now, do you remember the wind scale fire?
No, I don't at all. This is news to me. That's interesting that we had a nuclear disaster, because I didn't know about this.
Well, this spread radiation across the local area, the rest of the UK, and actually drifted into parts of Europe.
Ooh.
This radiation attributed to many subsequent cases of cancer in the local area. And whilst the fire didn't claim any immediate victims, it did claim about 100 people from thyroid and or lung cancer later down the line.
Oof, that's rough, isn't it? But yeah, I had no idea about that.
Every day's a learning day, Nikki. Now, you'd think that the wind scale fire would be a valuable lesson for everybody, but it definitely didn't seem it. The Soviets were pretty blasé about the whole using graphite situation and still went ahead even though there was lots of evidence to prove that this was not a good idea. It seemed that the construction of Chernobyl was more about the literal display of power, and yet it was more of like a house of cards waiting to be blown. The chances of something catastrophic happening weren't just possible, they were inevitable.
Yeah, I just can't see how, with all the things that are building up to this so far, how that couldn't be the case. It just, like you said, it is inevitable.
On the 23rd of April 1986, at around 11 p.m, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant was in the middle of its routine safety check of reactor 4. The people working the day shift had started the prep work for the safety test, and the people on the night shift were meant to just finish the job. Now, these tests were carried out on a semi-regular basis, but the plant was overdue for this one, and they'd fallen behind on testing, and so this meant that some of the fuel inside was older than recommended to begin the test, as this wasn't running at full power. We're in messy territory already.
Yeah, we are, aren't we?
The test was to check to see if they could stop the reactor in the case of a power cut. So the morning team had started the cooling required to bring the reactor down to a reasonable temperature to begin, and things were looking good. But this meant that the reactor would be firing for much longer than it usually would on a daily basis, and this caused the heat to rise inside. The reactor was not going to be able to be cooled as much as it usually would for any of the other routine tests, but the engineers were certain that they had it under control. After all, that's what safety tests are for, am I right?
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
When the shifts swapped over at around midnight, the test to shut down the reactor was already in progress, but the test was meant to have finished on the day shift. But it got handed over halfway through to the night shift workers, which is messy territory in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, all of this is just all sounding like people don't really know what they're doing or respect how dangerous this could be. And maybe I'm jumping the gun a bit, but maybe it's because they don't understand how dangerous this could be.
Yeah, and also it's a lot to catch up on what's been going on the day shift. Like handovers are normally the person in room 113 needed extra pillows, make sure that they don't take them.
Yeah.
Not, oh, we're doing this massive test.
And, you know, it's with a nuclear reactor and could be catastrophic. Yeah. Okay.
The Deputy Chief of Chernobyl, Anatoly Dyatlov, 55, was one of the people who had actually written the shutdown test procedure, and so this made him the best man for the job. Also in Reactor 4 control room was 32-year-old Alexandra Akimov, the shift supervisor, and Leonid Topchinov, the senior engineer for Reactor 4. Leonid was only 3 months into his senior engineer position, and he was the youngest of the group. At what age do you think he was?
22?
Okay. He wasn't that young, but still a spring chicken. He was 25 years old.
Okay, well, that's still pretty young, I would say.
Very young.
Yeah, particularly to be dealing with this type of stuff.
I'd be shitting myself at 25 years old. I was just a mere cross-dresser on Drag Race. As the shutdown test was well underway, the guidance in the room came direct from Anatoly. He directed Leonid to slowly start to reduce the reactor's output, and at around midnight, it was stable. But the temperature inside the reactor continued to drop, but Leonid didn't know that the coolant had dropped as much as it did. The reactor was now building up xenon gas inside and an excess of iodine-135. Leonid then switched the reactor to automatic power, thinking that the machine would just take over to balance everything out, but this was not the case. As he noticed the reactor was not reacting in the way that he expected, he then began adding more coolant, which then increased the amount of steam, and more dangerous chemicals were building inside the reactor with nowhere to go. At this moment, Leonid was pressing buttons, but his experience was really starting to show. But no one in the room spotted the mistakes, which were now starting to pile up and create the perfect storm. Now, no one really knows what happened next, but within moments, the reactor had suddenly dropped in power. Some people say that this was down to Leonard adding more coolant, which rapidly destabilized the reactor, and others say that this was a fault which caused it to glitch. The rapid loss of power actually caused the opposite of what you'd expect. With no coolant entering the reactor for just a matter of seconds, the temperatures kept rising. The graphite rods became unstable, and the team were adding more of them to try and get the reactor up to speed, which was just making things worse as some of them were beginning to fail. Despite many alarms beeping and system signals going into the red, the men in the control room kept tweaking and tinkering to get the reactor under control. They tried to add more coolant, but the tanks were running dry. However, at this point, they weren't concerned despite the system acting erratically, and they were still going to finish the test.
Really? That does not seem like a good idea to me at all. If it's something that's started to fail, would you not think...
Shut it down?
Yeah.
The final part of the test was scheduled to begin at 1:23:04 a.m, so very precise.
123:04.
Yeah. I didn't even twig that. Well done, Nikki Truth.
That seems like a good place to start from.
And with this specific time in mind, so the three men started this final part on the dot. The combination of the previous factors and an introduction of steam and not enough coolant sent the reactor into overdrive. Now, nobody knows what happened next, but for some reason, the emergency scram button was pressed. This button was an emergency shutoff for the reactor, but it didn't work in the way you may think an emergency stop button should work. In case you hadn't guessed already, nuclear power is a very volatile creature, and you can't just hit a stop button on a reactor and just hope everything resets. By hitting the scram button, Leonard effectively halted the reactor, which stopped everything. No coolant, no rods moving to stabilize the reactor, and the whole thing in an instant got half as hot as the surface of the sun. This wasn't just an explosion, Nikki. This was a disaster. Within a matter of seconds, 2 violent explosions ripped through reactor 4. One so violent, it threw the lid of the reactor open, which allowed the radiation to pour out. Now, you may think that the men would be fleeing for their lives at this moment, but they were in just such a state of disbelief at what had just happened, and they genuinely didn't think that the reactor had exploded. They thought the control panels were just faulty, that something had collapsed inside the reactor, but from their control room, despite the deafening noise, they believed it was just a fire.
Everything else would be telling you that it wasn't, though, wouldn't it? And what I've learnt so far is that nuclear power does not react in the way that you would expect it to react. So you add coolant, but it then gets hotter, and then it builds steam, and then it's got other gases involved in it. And it seems very complex and very difficult and dangerous, and if you don't know what you're doing and you're inexperienced, which is what the engineer is, you're going to mess it up, aren't you?
Well, with these people in the control room thinking it was just a fire, they called the fire brigade, and within minutes they arrived. But despite this being a nuclear power plant, it seemed no one really understood the severity of what was occurring right in front of them, or at least they didn't want to believe it. What we have to remember is that this time, fire, smoke, even exploded materials are all visible, but the radiation pouring out of the plant was invisible. A silent assassin fusing with people's cells and attacking them, poisoning their bloods and breaking them apart from within. In Pripyat, the town next to the reactor, people slept soundly in their beds, fully unaware that they were being bathed in radioactive dust of a silent killer. As the sun rose on Pripyat on the 26th of April 1986, people went about their lives as usual. They ate their breakfast, got ready for work and school, and went about their daily routines as if nothing had happened. And that's because they had no clue that anything had happened. as they sat at their desks, ran around in their playground, or just simply took a trip to the supermarket, they were unknowingly breathing in highly toxic radiation particles which were silently affecting them. As the radiation began seeping into people's bodies, it began to manipulate their internal systems. Headaches, dizziness, vomiting, diarrhea, and itchy skin began to sweep across all workplaces and schools. Before long, people were becoming sick, as even more people began noticing a strange metallic taste in the air. Remember what we spoke about on a previous episode? Metallic taste is radiation.
Yeah, I remember that. That's, the aircraft and metallic tastes and then radiation. Yeah, I remember all of this.
Well, the local medical centre was overrun with people displaying very similar symptoms, but as of yet, they had no clue what was causing this. But over at Chernobyl nuclear power plant, they knew exactly what had caused it. The fire was still raging away, but it was far enough away from the residents of Pripyat that it wasn't visible. By this time, the roof of the reactor had caught on fire, and now it was open to the elements spewing even more radiation into the air. But the Ukrainian government didn't even know what had happened, because the nuclear power plant was owned and run by Moscow in Russia. And they had failed to inform the local authorities of the nuclear disaster, so the townsfolk were just sitting ducks. Only at around 10 a.m. did the Ukrainian authorities find out what had happened, and they had hurried to put together a group to discuss what to do next. But the severity of what was happening was being heavily downplayed. As more and more people started rolling through the doors of the Pripyat Medical Center, it became apparent that something had to be done, but it would still take a further 24 hours for anything to happen. And in the meantime, people were breathing in deadly levels of radiation without even realizing it. Eventually, the decision was made by the Ukrainian authorities. It was time to evacuate the almost 50,000 people living in Pripyat, and it had to be done immediately.
Wow. Well, that's a lot of people to get out of one place, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So on the 27th of April at 2 p.m., the following announcement went out on TV and to local radio stations. For the attention of the residents of Pripyat, the city council informs you that due to an accident at the Chernobyl power station in the city of Pripyat, the radioactive conditions in the vicinity are deteriorating. The Communist Party, its officials, and the armed forces are taking necessary steps to combat this. Nevertheless, with this view to keep people as safe and healthy as possible, the children being the top priority, we need to temporarily evacuate the citizens into the nearest towns of Kiev region. For these reasons, starting from the 27th of April at 2 p.m., each apartment block will be able to have a bus at its disposal, supervised by the police and the city's officials. It's highly advisable to take your documents, some vital personal belongings, and a certain amount of food just in case with you. The senior executives of public and industrial facilities of the city have decided on the list of employees needed to stay in Pripyat to maintain these facilities in good working order. All the houses will be guarded by the police during the evacuation period. Leaving your residences temporarily, please make sure you have turned off the lights, electrical equipment, and water and shut the windows. Please keep calm and orderly in the process of this short-term evacuation. And just like that, within 24 hours, Pripyat was left eerily quiet, except for those left behind ordered to stay and help with the fallout. And for those who didn't have a choice, this was a suicide mission, one they didn't realize they were accepting. For those leaving on the many buses out of Pripyat, they didn't realize that this would be the last time that they would see their homes, say goodbye to their pets, and even their loved ones. And this was not a temporary goodbye. This would be the end of life as they knew it. But what would happen next at Reactor 4 would be the stuff of nightmares. A deadly cleanup process which seemed impossible, a situation which would only be getting worse, and a reactor which was still continuing to pump out radiation at levels which would never have been seen before. And for those left behind, the outlook was looking grim. As the core continued to burn, it didn't now just threaten the town of Pripyat. It now threatened Europe as a whole, and that the threat was only going to get worse with every second that ticked by. And that was part 1 of the Chernobyl disaster. Nikki, what the hell just happened?
It's a lot, isn't it? I just can't help but feel like nobody really knows what's going on apart from the people in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And that the people that are evacuated, they think they're going for 3 days, and that's not going to be the case. And everything that they know, everything they've built their homes with, everything that, they do on their daily basis, all their routine, that's all gone. That's never coming back for them now. But they just don't realise it yet, and they've just not been told. And I can understand from a certain point of view not telling people at that point.
Yeah.
Because you don't want panic. So I can see why. And you don't want people spending time there longer than they should do with trying to take their belongings and that sort of thing. So I can see why you might play it down a bit. But it's just a shit show all round, isn't it?
Unfortunately, it is. And it's not going to get any better from here on out. So I hope you're ready for part 2. It's a toughie, but it's what we do on this podcast. With all our light episodes, we have to go to the dark places sometimes. So please stick around for part 2. Coming up next time on Killers, Cults and Queens, we'll be exploring what really happened in the literal fallout of the nuclear disaster of Chernobyl. So make sure you join us for part 2 on Thursday.
And we want to hear from you. We'll be discussing your thoughts and theories this Friday on the Spooky Sleepover bonus show. So pop us an email at killerscultsqueens@gmail.com.
Or drop us a DM on Instagram at Killers, Cults, Queens. Leave a comment on our Spotify or YouTube pages. Or join us over on Patreon, because we would love to hear from you.
Thanks to Snag for supporting this series of Killers, Cults and Queens. Please go and support them back at snagtights.com. If you've been affected by any of the themes in this episode, please take a look at the description for lots of helpful resources.
Remember, you can watch our full-length episodes of us in studio on YouTube and on Spotify, or over on Patreon at our exclusive community at patreon.com/Killers, Cults and Queens, where we upload our episodes ad-free and a day early.
See you next time. Don't be a killer or join a cult.
Just be a queen. Goodbye, divas.
Goodbye.